Waters World is on tonight.
I have a warning to you, ISIS. We have trained soldiers in all 50 states that have been actually the same guys who've been kicking your ass for the last 14 years.
A stern warning from one of our country's bravest. Medal of Honor recipient Dakota Meyer is here with his plan to take down ISIS. Plus,
it's a witch hunt. It's really, really insane. They would rather see this country fail than see him succeed.
Eric Trump on the mainstream media's daily attacks on his father. And
some man in the tinfoil hat is reading like a teenage girl.
Musician Todd Rundgren has a few choice words for the president, but can he face the music on Waters World? Then,
who fought in the Civil War?
Britain and Spain, some part of Spain.
We're honoring Memorial Day weekend with a Waters World history quiz. It all begins right now. Welcome to Waters World. I'm Jesse Waters. We've got a big show tonight, but I want to start with the hysteria of the left. Remember this guy?
If you get sick in America, this is what the Republicans want you to do. If you get sick, America, the Republican health care plan is this: die quickly.
That was when Republicans were trying to stop Obamacare from putting us further in debt. And 8 years later, the irresponsible name-calling is still going. This week, Team Trump proposed its new budget, and again, the Democrats are hyperbolic.
That budget that Trump has presented is a grotesquely immoral budget. It is a horrific budget. Senior citizens will lose perhaps the one nutritious meal a day they get, the Meals on Wheels program.
This budget, if I can be honest with you, it is an attempt to implement ethnic cleansing in this nation.
It is not an overstatement to say that some children will die because of this.
Children will die. The budget proposes things like requiring those on welfare to work and cutting out pork. Is that so bad? Joining me now is Anton Gunn, who worked in Health and Human Services under President Obama. Anton, you weren't responsible under President Obama for the Obamacare website, were you?
I was not responsible for the website.
Okay, good. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So the budget kills children. You know that's a lie, don't you?
No, it's not a lie. It's actually a fundamental framework of the program. See, a lot of programs to provide support for families, children with disabilities, families who have nutritional needs, and if they don't get their health care or if they don't get the services that they need, people die. So
okay, so you're saying that President Trump is purposely trying to kill children with his budget. Do you realize how crazy that sounds?
Yeah, it does sound crazy, but what I am saying is that President Trump and his team don't understand the federal budget and don't understand what these agencies do. They provide services for people in the middle of America, people who have needs, people in our country who've been left out of the process, who need support from the government. And if you don't understand those programs, you'll make decisions that cut them, and that'll take away services and the things that people need that are really important for their survival and their life.
It's funny to hear someone lecture the president on not understanding the federal budget when President Obama never submitted a balanced budget for the entire 8 years he was president. Let me ask you this, though. One of the guys up there on the montage said this budget was ethnic cleansing. You don't agree with that, do you?
I actually don't agree with that. I agree that the budget will disproportionately impact people in low-income communities. And in some communities, people that are low-income may be people of color. But so you can call it whatever you want to call it. It's a devastating budget for most of Americans who have needs, who are the least of these, who've been left out of the system for the most of all. So this is a big challenge with this budget.
Well, I'm glad you don't agree with the fact that it's ethnic cleansing, because that does a huge disservice to the people that were actually victims of real ethnic cleansing over in Europe many, many years ago. You know, the death talk about the budget. We had a situation under President Obama, who you worked for, when about almost 300 veterans died in VA waiting lines while some of these executives received bonuses. And you had 4 people in Benghazi who died while they weren't protected. And people died on the border, Border Patrol agents, fast and furious, when the previous president let gun walk across into Mexico. So to say this budget's going to kill people, looking back, I think a lot of the previous policies under the last president actually did kill people.
So you can cherry pick any kind of situation
That's
and
not
say
cherry
that somebody
picking,
did
that's
something
real.
bad. Listen. You can go back to 2001 and saw that almost 3,000 Americans died in New York City on 9/11 under the president before President Obama. And so you can blame him for not doing enough in Homeland Security. So you can't cherry
President
pick that
Obama
way, but you can
knew
focus
that these
on,
guns were crossing the border to Mexico. President Obama knew there were problems at the VA and still didn't do anything about it.
in the same way President Trump's administration knows that there are Americans who have disabilities who need care, but they've chosen to make a decision in their budget to deny them the opportunity to have that care and those services. So to cut Meals on Wheels to seniors in America, I mean, how are you going to negatively impact the greatest generation of Americans on the services that they need? They may only get 1 or 2 nutritious meals. My grandmother's 92, born in 1925, and so these are services that many Americans need, but to make a decision to cut them out of the budget will devastate so many Americans and so many families that it makes actually no sense to do it.
Yeah,
and
when
that's
I
why
was
I say
a
they
young
don't understand
guy
what's in the budget.
growing up in Philadelphia, I actually participated in the Meals on Wheels program and delivered some of those meals to older Americans. And, you know, I don't think they're actually going to cut that. I actually think that's a noble program, but that's besides the point. That's probably just a strong initial first bid, and then he'll probably come back from there. Let me ask you about some of the pork, though, in the budget here. The EPA, Trump's cutting the EPA. The EPA spent $700,000 for a climate change musical. Do you think that's a good use of taxpayer money, Anton?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily spend money on a musical, but what I would spend money on is make sure that our rivers are clean, to make sure our lakes are clean, to make sure that climate is good.
I agree.
So I can't talk about a musical.
Okay, so we agree.
I will also say
we agree. So the musical goes. Let's get rid of the musical. Hold on. Let me go through some of these. They also spent $7 million on grasshopper research. Now, you know, I know grasshoppers are a great insect. They also, you know, have shrimp running on treadmills to study those things too. Do you think that's a good use of taxpayer money?
Well, I'm not a scientist, so I can't answer that question, but I would advise that before you make a decision to cut a program, to actually talk to somebody who knows the science behind it and what's the value of doing that.
$7 million is a lot of money to spend on grasshoppers. I'd rather put that money back on Meals on Wheels. Listen, I'm not saying some of these things aren't good things to invest money in. All I'm saying is we're $20 trillion in debt. The last president went from 10 trillion to the 20 trillion, and we can't afford some of these things, so let's prioritize the things that are important. How's that sound, Anton?
No, it sounds like we should prioritize, but it sounds like we should actually talk to people that knows how these programs work and how the agencies work, and don't make arbitrary decisions to just cut the programs that impact the poorest people in our communities. That actually makes no sense whatsoever. There's nobody that will even manage their household in that way, so I don't know why we're trying to do the federal budget in the same way.
Well, people that manage their household actually have to work within a budget. The federal government does not. So I think we all should try to act like we're all part of one big family. Anton, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Still to come, a Water's World exclusive. They say the best business is done on the golf course. So I hit the links with Eric Trump and got his reaction to his father's first trip overseas. Plus, 70s rocker Todd Rundgren has a message for Trump supporters. Don't come to my show. But will he be singing a different tune on my show? He joins me next.
When you're close to the people you love, does psoriasis ever get in the way of a touching moment? If you have moderate to severe psoriasis, you can embrace the chance of completely clear skin.